So a couple weeks back, I asked you guys on a poll in advance to my last video, which would you like to see next? A video of my ranking for each episode in season 4 or the finale's ranked? And you guys chose to see my ranking for each episode in the season. And while this is my own opinion, I gotta get that out the way because this season had a lot of people divided. I personally stand on the side that actually enjoys this season. I don't think the show's gone bad, but it isn't my favorite nor the worst season in my eyes. But that's not to say that this season doesn't have weaker episodes compared to other ones. It definitely does, which is why I'm doing my ranking. So without any further ado, let's get this video underway.
You are a genetically superior being, and she's the evolutionary equivalent of a capybara.
I'm the peak of human evolution, and you're just a capybara. It's a rodent from South America.
In last place, I'll give it to episode 2 for season 4. The thing with this episode is that it has good moments in it. No matter what, all these episodes have something good to offer. In this one, you have Deep threatening Ashley. While it's a good serious moment, the Deep is a joke as the season goes on, so it don't even matter. This is also where Firecracker becomes more screen present throughout season 4, and I don't mind that because her character is a really good addition to the show. And while you do have good interactions between Butcher and Mother's Milk, you also have Kimiko figuring out the whole thing with Colin and Frenchie, which I'll bring up later in more detail. But in FYI, I feel like I'm gonna nitpick this one subplot because I feel it barely goes anywhere. While it fits Frenchie's character, I feel like it was useless. It barely went anywhere in the whole season. But as far as A-Train, it's justified. His brother and him have had this since season 3, so their connection has been set up very well up to this point. And seeing A-Train go on his redemption arc in this season is obviously what a lot of people highlight for this season. It's a very good thing. And it's good to see that he's helping out the boys in this moment, especially after what they did for him. But obviously you can't have a good episode without having its effed up moment. And for this, you have the death of the stuntman. Thing is, this episode isn't even bad. I just feel it's the weakest for season 4. Personally, I like the fight between the duplication guy and the boys. And even mentioning Firecracker is generous, because her ass just shows up and then might have the funniest moment here where she gets knocked out by Butcher. But then again, this is the same episode where people be quoting this type of thing and then posting it online for inspiration.
You can't go around feeling bad about what you are because a few things break. Who cares?
What's even funnier is the fact that he grabs the milkshake he's offering to Ryan as a way of, I guess, punishment. I have no clue, but this is one of the most devious things he does, and I just find it hilarious.
Does nobody come back pregnant? I'm just kidding. I'm kidding. They're too young. Although Ryan could spew goo if he wanted to.
What the fuck are you doing here?
In 7th place, I'll give it to the opening for season 4, episode 1. This episode isn't bad. It's a nice starter to season 4, and it's more of a slow burn, and I don't mind that, because this is the first time we're seeing the boys after a couple years and they're back on screen. It's nice to see them interacting with one another again, especially Butcher. There's a lot going on with him in this episode, whether it be Ryan or Homelander figuring out that he's dying. That's some good stuff in this episode. It's also nice to note that Zoe kills the guard in this opening, which is crazy because we finally get to see her suit power since season 3. We knew she got injected with Compound V. The trick with Newman not dying to Butcher when he's around there for Hughie is some wild twist, because the whole plot of the beginning for this first episode is them telling us they're trying to kill Newman. You also have Kessler finally appearing in this episode for the first time, and knowing where that leads in the future of episodes, it's good to see his character. It also helps that he's played by Jeffrey Dean Morgan. It's also very funny that this is where Homelander's just very stressed out, because in season 4 he really shines. This is really his season as far as how many crazy moments he goes on. In this episode, he's unhinged with the whole Blow A-Train that became so popular and memed. But if this is the season where Homelander goes crazy, it all starts here, and it's really funny to witness, and it's just peak entertainment. But this is also the same episode where the whole subplot for Hughie gets introduced with his father. And unlike the whole Colin and Starlighters deal, this is a really good subplot I'm invested in, because at least this one goes somewhere for our character. We also have the introduction to Sage, which isn't bad. Her character addition is really good to the show, and it's nice seeing her dynamic with Homelander. But as I mentioned before, this is where the whole Colin and Frenchie subplot begin. And I tell you now, we know how his character was, but we had no setup to who the hell Colin was. This man just showed up. We don't know Colin. I can't express how much I just don't like the subplot because I have no real reason to be hooked on it. I don't hate it. I just find it useless. It's so pointless. But I'll continue on that rant later. What isn't useless is the whole plan with Sage. The way they killed Todd and used their bodies, their corpses as evidence for the Starlayers rioting is good. The peak humor is good. And the end with it showing that the parasite within Butcher is alive, it's some good stuff. The only thing that holds it back is just that weird Colin subplot. Remember how I said that every episode has like its own good moment I enjoy? Well, episode 3 has a bunch of them. This is an episode I don't hate at all. This is an episode I have some enjoyment in. Because out of the 3 episodes that came out for the premiere of Boys Season 4 on Prime Video, this was by far my favorite. Whether you have Ryan playing this sort of off-brand Mortal Kombat with a Raiden reference from MK11, a little bit of fanboy in me enjoyed that. But also this episode's very funny. Whether it be narcoleptic new Black Noir sleeping, it's some funny great stuff. And it's good to see the little octopus subplot with Deep being funny. This might just also be the one season where Ryan is more bearable to deal with on screen. So much so that Butcher doesn't even want to knock him out because they have such a wholesome interaction with each other. It's fun to see on screen. Whether it be Butcher playing foosball with Ryan and them just having a father to son moment, it's one of those things that it's really good, especially with Butcher venting to him about how he's afraid of death. It's some good stuff.
I'm gonna finally do it. I am finally gonna fucking quit. Disney's been trying to recruit me for years, and I am a goddamn girl boss.
Ashley's actress does a good job in that moment. Also, you have Frenchie's whole subplot really coming into play with it being guilt instead of just Colin. It's really that he killed his family. This is some good stuff, okay? This is the best part of the subplot as far as it goes. But did it really need to take 3 episodes to dive this deep into it? Obviously, we have Kimiko and the Shining Light member, Tala, if you say it right, Tala, whichever way you say it. But it's nice to see a little more of Kimiko origin, like her backstory, her past, coming back to her. This is also where Annika dies. Yeah, no surprise there. Everyone knows about that because she's been joked around since season 1. But obviously, the highlight of this episode, at least in my opinion, is the freaking whole Hughie interaction with Homelander. And at first viewing, I felt bad. I thought my boy Hughie was finna die because this is Homelander we're speaking of. The stakes were kind of high. But thankfully, because of the whole A-Train redemption arc kind of set up a bit prior, he ends up saving Hughie. Honestly, like I said, the way episode 3 is, I really like it. And the way it ends is actually even better if you think about it, because this sets up for possibly one of my favorite episodes in the show of all time. Which is saying something because you're going to see it later on this list. But this episode leads up to episode 4. Which, if I'm already praising it now, you can imagine how much I'm going to praise it later. But enough of that. Episode 3 is pretty good. I don't have to say any more on it. I really like it.
The Vernon family started out as slave catchers. You know, I bet A-Train here would have given my great-great-granddaddy a run for his money. Oh. Huh? But we would have caught you.
Oh.
I guess we'll never know.
There ain't no party like a tech night party. For next up, we got episode 6, Dirty Business. This episode is a crazy ass episode. The fact that I didn't mention it in my last video is kind of wild to me because I must have overlooked it. Either it being the whole conversation about having a murder boner for the OG Noir, or just Sage having her brain effed up and speaking like a random gibbering lunatic. And this episode is known for 2 things, but one of them mainly being how freaky Tech Night is, man. This episode is so fucked, man. My boy Hughie didn't deserve this, whether it be from Ashley or him. But the fact that when he unmasks Hughie, he just goes even more crazy with it, it's just so fucked, man. My boy Hughie didn't deserve this. Not to mention, you find out in this moment that they've been spying on Janine, so Mother's Milk ends up getting a panic attack in the moment. But then again, this might lead to possibly one of my more favorite moments of the season. As crazy and unhinged as this episode is with Tech Night, it has A-Train save Mother's Milk. But that's not what does it for me. It's the whole interaction with the kid and A-Train himself. It's a great ass scene. And he even mentions it later in another episode how much it meant to him. It's wild because Homelander is very overshadowed in this episode. Compared to Tech Knight, A-Train, Hughie, like there's so much more characters that you think of in this episode rather than Homelander. The whole parody with Bruce Wayne and Alfred being this with Tech Knight, it's just so damn funny. Obviously the Kimiko and Frenchie subplot where he takes himself in at this point, it's heartbreaking to witness. But this episode is pretty damn good. Even with all the freaky stuff regarding Homelander and Firecracker, or even just the whole Spider-Man parody with Zendaya, Webweaver, you know the whole drill. This episode is very wild. And the ending for it, with the twist of Joe Kessler being a figment of his imagination from the Parasite, great stuff. A lot of us saw it coming, but it doesn't take away from how good this scene is. Imagine if you're a person who didn't see this twist coming. It's a nice reveal. It's a nice way to show it off. It's an amazing callback to season 2 as well.
Daddy's home. Daddy's home. I have found it. The answer to all our prayers.
And what might that be?
Well, it's nothing much, just a virus that kills soups.
This is the part on the ranking where I had a very difficult task ahead because episode 5 is a great episode in my opinion. I really love this episode. I can argue this would have been 3. I kept swapping it out for 4. But even at some point, even now during the editing, I thought of putting it at 2. It's really that good. This episode has tensions rising with A-Train, and I'll mention that as soon as it goes later on because Sage is figuring out that he's the leak even if she doesn't reveal to anyone. But he does reveal to Ashley the whole fact that he's the leak, and that's good stuff going forward. I also want to mention the funny fact of Adam in this episode. While this might not be the most insane Homelander episode until the end, it's funny to mention that Homelander has Ryan keep his keys and wallet, and he doesn't get it back. Further on in this episode, Adam gets tortured more by getting slapped. This is kind of a funny scene, weirdly enough, but it's kind of weird to know that Ryan is following in Homelander's steps. Kind of concerning going forward. This is a bit of a funny episode because the thing is, it's very humorous with the way they make fun of the MCU with all the phases. That's a good moment. But what really makes this episode is the return of frickin' Stan Edgar. It was such a great call to bring back Giancarlo Esposito in this episode because the thing is, he's such a great addition to this whole season. Even if he isn't apparent for any other episode, I'm fine with the fact that we got him for this one episode because he does a hell of an appearance in it. Now, his presence is really good in this episode. Obviously, it's also kind of funny to mention that a freaking chicken scared him more than Homelander ever could. But, yeah, Firecracker's still pissed about what happened in episode 4, which I'll mention later. And remember how I said there can't be a good scene without an effed up moment? Well, look no further than the damn bunny that Butcher saves. After discovering it randomly in the forest, it goes, pleh, and reveals its damn parasite that he has, which we'll find out in episode 8. While that's a cruel scene, it is, it's the boys. What do you expect? And personally, my favorite part of this episode, which is the whole segment with Hughie and his dad. This has been set up for a while now. So this has meaning behind it. We know this character. We've known him since season 1. And it's heartbreaking to see Hughie lose his dad. It truly is. Jack Hoyt sells the performance. Simon Pegg does a great job too. In some aspects, I feel like he does better than Quaid. And it's also nice to know that Stan Edgar is going to be returning for season 5. That's something I'm looking forward to. And if you thought we were going to go one episode without Homelander doing something devious, well, think again. Because Ashley tries to get revenge on Cameron Coleman from earlier in the episode. And I kid you not, in this moment, it was so tense I thought A-Train was going to die. But no, instead, Deep pulls out what they believe is the leak to be Cameron Coleman. And they murder him in brutal fashion. We may not see it, but we can definitely visualize it. It's nice to note that Ashley will regret this later even though she smirks in the moment. Just like Frenchie regrets all the murders he's done, because this is where he puts himself in custody. But it's really a good episode, whether you have Sam and Kate return back from Gen V, or just the ending. The ending's good. There's nothing to really go and say that there's bad about this ending. It's pretty good. But yeah, I don't feel no certain way. Episode 5 is a great episode to me. Next up on the list is episode 7, titled The Insider. I told you guys that from ranked 4 and on, that these episodes are great. This is nonetheless. And for this episode, it's good because Homelander finds the bug and he confronts Sage about it. And later on, they go on their own little quest with Firecracker. As for the boys, Butcher finally brings back Frenchie. After him dipping for an episode and just not being on screen present whatsoever, he's back. And it's all because Butcher reveals to them that he has Samir and they want to fix the virus. There are a lot of moments I like in this episode, whether it be Ryan coming across Butcher's gift or even Monique getting back with Mother's Milk. But this scene right here is what I really like.
I had Cameron killed. I had him killed.
You saved my life.
I could have done that some other way. He didn't have to die. It's so easy to become a monster around here.
I mentioned it earlier with Ashley being a greater character in this season. Even if she does some crazy thing to Hughie in the Tech Night episode, Colby Manifi does a good job with her. In this episode, they also find out the assassination attempt for President Singer.
It's like a furnace in there. Okay.
This is also a good moment that would be brought back up in the finale to be paid off. Obviously, this is a more centric focused A-Train episode, and he discusses how much the save meant to him, especially with the kid. That's great stuff. And Homelander, as usual, doing something devious. As I said, Season 4 is really his way to shine. But he kills Web Weaver in this moment with Firecracker witnessing it. Kind of traumatized, I guess. Obviously, I'm mentioning a lot of things I like about this episode, but a good thing they got done is showing us Kimiko's backstory. They finally go full topic in it this time. And Frenchie and her are on good terms. That's nice to see after what we witnessed before. Especially with the whole Colin subplot and the guilt being done. That's good to see. Obviously, the Deep gets his joke with the octopus kind of closed here. And you would think he'll become more of a serious character after that moment. But no, he's still a joke. Because when they fight in the headquarters, which is a good fight by the way, he ends up getting his ass whooped. Which I'll mention in a minute. But it's funny to see narcoleptic Black Noir pass out in front of Butcher. Some great stuff. It's kind of funny. And then you also have A-Train helping out the boys in this moment. This is where his redemption arc goes full circle, at least in everyone's eyes, because he doesn't come back in the finale. But him fighting against the Deep, or even just the boys taking on Black Noir and the Deep to help A-Train, it's some great stuff. This is a good fight, and I really do love it. And it's nice to know that Starlight, of all people, is the one who really, does the final blow. Not the one who kills him, but essentially takes him out for the moment, because of what they've had set up for before in other seasons, especially season 1. As I said, Ashley's a really good character in this season, and I feel like in this moment, in this episode, near the end, it's also really good. Especially for what they set up in the ending with the finale, what happens with her. It's such a tragic way to see her character just stay at Vought. A little funny moment, whether it be Sage getting fired by Homelander and then finding out that she was interested with Black Noir and Deep was kind of basically cucked in the moment, which is very funny to see, especially for his character. It's a good moment to fast forward to because obviously we have Mother's Milk back in the team. The whole plan was to get the virus extracted so that way it can only kill Homelander and not commit a genocide, but we all know how that follows through. What's good is the ending. The way this sets up for the finale is great. Whether it be Ryan not really going on Homelander's lead or even just Butcher passing out, basically being on death row. It all comes to this point where the finale leads on, and it's really great. Don't even get me started on the frickin' twist at the end with the whole Starlight being the shapeshifter. When I saw that, I was like, my boy Hughie's a victim again. But you know how this follows through in the finale, which I'll get to later. Just know I really love this episode and how it's paced.
So, big day. You ready?
You have no idea. You have no idea.
How's that for uppity, cracker?
I mean it when I say that this is one of my favorite episodes of the entire show. Now, it isn't as good as the other one next on the list, but it's pretty damn good anyway. Even if you still have your whole subplot with Frenchie and Colin kind of ending here. Like I said, I felt that barely had any impact because we didn't know him. So that part of the episode I could care less about. However, this episode is very strong. Whether you have Sage figuring out that A-Train's the leak, suspecting him, this is where it starts, or even the whole dilemma with the boys and Starlight, how it plays a part. Especially later on with Firecracker, which I'll mention. But what makes this episode stand out is none other than frickin' Homelander. And Anthony Starr does a great job with the character, and you can definitely see that here. He's a good actor. In this moment, he plays Trashkaball with this one worker, Frank. And he says this.
I was just doing my job.
That is not the type of thing you say to Homelander after torturing him as a kid. And we all know how that follows through, don't we? Mind you, that's only the start of his revenge for this episode. In this episode, Hughie wants to help his father out and he has A-Train get Compound B for him, and this is where he encounters Ashley. And we know how that dynamic will go in the future, so that's good. You also have the Shining Light members with Tala interrupting and ambushing Hughie and Kimiko in the moment. So that's a good thing we get to witness on the side. I want to also mention how there might just be one of the funniest scenes of the whole show for me, and that's this scene right here with Butcher and Firecracker.
Well, you're those motherfuckers that killed my friend.
Yeah, crying shame that. But if it's any consolation, he's up there with God, noshing on his holiest of holies as we speak.
Shut your fucking face.
All right.
Fast forward to Freaky Lander and his moment in the lab, getting his revenge. Now he's after Marty. And where do I begin with this? Because I mentioned this a bit in the Diabolical episode that I made. This moment is so randomly fucked, man. When I saw this, I'm not gonna lie, I felt kind of traumatized watching what I was seeing. Because as far as how weird this show can get, it has its moments. You expect this. But for the way they do Marty, this is just cruel. This is some effed up thing. I can't imagine myself being in that situation. That would have been terrifying. And then you have stuff with Hughie fighting against one of the Shining Light members, and you know how that goes. It's good, the way he kills him. Good moment. Obviously, Kimiko doing what she did to Tala and knowing that she's the reason she got the scar. Great stuff. And not to mention, we have Sister Sage's plan going into fruition with Firecracker versus Starlight. That was a satisfying beatdown, even if it isn't good for Starlight to see in the public view. This is also the episode where Ezekiel dies after fighting with Frenchie and Butcher. And it's a really good moment because we know how this guy died. We all know that it was to his tumor, and we all know how that is in the final episode. But to see this for the first time, we're left curious as to what killed him and how did he die. You also have the messed up scene of Sage explaining the lobotomy process to Deep. But you also have Hughie and A-Train basically make amends in this episode for everything that's happened. He finally lets it come to term with both of them being on their separate way. That's a nice moment. We also get Butcher explaining to us how he took Compound V during the process to see if it would save him, and clearly it didn't. Instead, it just made his big day come quicker. But that isn't what makes this episode. It's the way it ends. The lead up from Hughie's dad taking the Compound V and his eyes opening from what we've known him in the previous episodes. That's great stuff. The bad room with Homelander and Barbara being trapped in there, sealed tight. That is crazy. This episode is just amazing.
But it ain't no big thing.
Okay, well, you're coughing all over me. It's fucking disgusting. Go further down. Scoot.
Easily in first place, we have the finale. This is a lot of people's favorite episode for the season, and it is mine too. There's so much going on, whether you have Butcher on his deathbed, or even just funny openings with the Deep and the whole I take responsibility. There's a lot of things that are great in this episode, and that's not even the best of it. Whether it be Ryan and Homelander's interaction with one another, about him finding a picture of Butcher in his bag. So many little good moments. It's all handled so well. You have Shapeshifter and Annie, or even Butcher on the call with Hughie. Little heartfelt moments like that are great. But you also have, like I said, your effed up moments, and for this one you have Homelander revealing that Newman's a soup to the public view. And that's crazy stuff. That's handled well. You also have Ashley make a list for Homelander, and only to be revealed as a kill list for anyone who had dirt on the Seven or even him. And for her to be on that list, it makes her take Compound V. And it goes to her line of, it's so easy to become a monster. It's tragic. Not to mention, Butcher and Ryan have a heart-to-heart moment playing Connect 4, but obviously Mallory ruins that by dumping all this cruel exposition on him. And if you thought that was bad enough, she asks him to kill his own father. What might that do to a stressed out kid, you might ask yourself? And then you have Hughie figuring out that Shapeshifter isn't really the Annie that he knows. And to follow up might just be the funniest scene of the whole season for me.
But that is 100% not Annie. Okay, listen. The fate of the country relies on us keeping our shit together, so just chill.
Hey! And like I mentioned in the Diabolical episode, this is where all hell breaks loose. This is where the assassination attempt tries to start, and it's insane. The whole sequence is amazing. From Kimiko or even Starlight fighting Shapeshifter and her dying from it, it's awesome. But what really bothers me is that Starlight gets mad at Hughie for what happened in the previous and current episode. And I don't like that because she got SA'd and he got SA'd. It's the same thing. I don't know why she was acting that way, but she does forgive him later, so I guess it's whatever. But even then, it's still kind of messy. What also is messy is the damn sequence in frickin' Vought where they kill the people who have dirt. And the murder boner joke gets brought back up. That's a good moment. And to quote my Diabolical video again, this is also where Kimiko and Frenchie get back together again. I love that. This is such a sweet and happy ending for them. And I really love how it goes. Until I don't. Why did they take it away? I know that this is supposed to be a twist ending, but damn. That just goes to show how good the show is at subverting your expectation, because this takes a whole dark shifting turn, with Mallory dying and Kessler in control for Butcher since he's pushed over the limit. And that's some crazy stuff, because when you think that they're gonna have Newman on their side, Butcher just shows up with his, "Oi, I'm here to kill Newman and take that virus, Frenchie." So he does that, and he snaps her in half and leaves. He gets what he came for, with his parasite all revealed finally to the screen. It's all insane stuff. It's great. We get the trailer line in here too. But you cannot talk about this episode without talking about the ending sequence. You think Homelander might have lost? He even feels he lost? No. Sage comes in and shows up saying that this is exactly how the plan should have gone. The Supes are in charge. Homelander's in charge of power. Crazy stuff going into season 5. Now that's already wild enough. But up to this point, you think that the boys are going to separate. They're going to go on their own journey paths. They're going to be fine. They're trying to escape the law. They're all going to be, going incognito. You think they might be fine. But think again. Because after Starlight finds that she has her powers back, she's getting control of them again, they get freaking ambushed. But you also have Zoe going to Red River where Newman and freaking Marie from Gen V went to. You have freaking Mother's Milk encountering Love Sausage. You have Kate and Sam taking on Kimiko and Frenchie. Or in my opinion, the worst one, freaking Hughie and Starlight getting abducted by soldiers from Vought. And to be revealed that it's freaking Cindy of season 2 back in the show, helping Vought. The way Starlight just escapes, perfect. I love what they're setting up for season 5. It's all looking great. Butcher being the only one who escaped is kind of poetic because he's the effed up one in the group right now. So to see him still roaming free is scary stuff. And this is a slow burn of a season, but the way that this finale wraps it, it all sets up for season 5 greatly. And don't even get me started. We get the freaking return of Soldier Boy. Do you know how long I've been waiting for this?
You know how long I've been waiting for this?
I have no words. This episode is great, and for what it's setting up, I'm all for it. And that'll be it for the video. Thank you all for watching, and if you enjoyed it, be sure to definitely leave a like, or even if anything, subscribe. It all helps out the channel very much. If you guys haven't seen the other video already before this, definitely watch it. I'll leave it linked here in the description and even right now on the screen, hopefully. But yeah. Thank you all for watching, and if you have your own list or ranking, be sure to let me know. I read every comment. And that'll be it. Thank you all for watching. Have a nice day.